Welcome to Right Talk with Nathalene. This evening I'm going to talk about something that's exciting to me, but maybe not to too many people, except those who may have some legal background, legal knowledge. But sitting next to me is Laura Pressley, the greatest unlicensed attorney that I've ever known.
You're so funny. I'm not a lawyer.
If anyone,
I don't pretend to be a lawyer.
I see these institutions somehow handing out honorary doctorates and all that, you should get one, for real.
You're awful sweet.
No, because
I appreciate that.
when I first met you, or heard of you, you were arguing in the Court of Appeals, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up there for the oral argument. And you had an attorney that looked almost to be your twin.
She's a good friend of mine, Anna Eby.
And
she's a lawyer in Round Rock. Yeah.
When you stood up to argue, I thought. And then when I found out that you weren't a lawyer, your lawyer looked so much like you, I thought it was you. But and your argument went down when it occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And your fight, I know you had been a candidate for city council here in Austin.
Yes, sir.
And you lost, and you contested that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of people thought it was just sour grapes. But it seemed you've taken up a cause of what you call true Texas elections.
Yes.
And voter fraud, I think, is a problem. Now, many people laughed at the president when he first mentioned it. He created this commission and whatnot. Eventually had to disband the commission. But they thought it was a joke. And they kind of poo-pooed it, just like they poo-pooed when he said they were spying on him. It turned out to be true.
Right.
So a lot of things he said they poo-pooed that turned out to be true. But I want to talk to you today about just elections in Texas, because in keeping up with your case, it turned out that many of the things about which you complained were just matters of law that should have been followed. And it seemed as though you had to go through all this rigmarole to get people to do their daggone jobs according to laws that are on the books. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely, Mike. You're exactly right.
You had to go to the Supreme Court of Texas to say, tell the, who was the Secretary of State wasn't doing their job?
That's right. The agents in the Secretary of State's office.
Agents.
Yeah. We talk about the Secretary of State didn't do their job in our election, but it really wasn't the Secretary of State per se. It was what I like to call agents, lawyers, bureaucrats in that office that were giving waivers to law. I mean, it's shocking. We have laws on the books, Mike, and we're just not following them.
There's a show that I've been thinking about for months about problems or challenges, we should say, that are faced by professionals such as myself, judges,
yes,
and sometimes elected officials, just not doing what's on the books.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how much you had to go through to try to get people to perform their duties that the law says do.
That's right.
And when I talk about and I think about voter integrity, that's one thing that's kind of big right now. Where he's working at Judicial Watch in Washington, D.C. And what they're finding is in this last election was in North Carolina, where they going to have redo for a congressional election. And there was some evidence of voter fraud in Florida,
Right.
Georgia.
That's right.
And in many communities that happen to be predominantly minority black communities, they always claim about voter intimidation, voter fraud, like they're afraid to go to the polls. And you have these voters, you have the struggle about voter ID laws. You have to have an ID to cash a check. You have to have an ID to drive a car. And if voting is as crucial and as sacred as they say, why shouldn't you have to identify yourself?
It's a constitutional right. Absolutely constitutional right to vote.
And now
That's right.
they're what liberals and Democrats want to do, they can't get enough Americans to vote for them. So they want to bring some outsiders in and let them vote for them. That's really how I see it. They can't get enough Americans to vote for their garbage.
So you have to go.
Not call it garbage.
So you have
gotta,
to go to people
so
that
you gotta get some,
are not allowed to vote by
you
law.
got to get some people who aren't Americans to vote.
Right.
It used to be sacred to be an American. And now I think I heard was Joe Biden said he considers immigrants who want to come here, they're Americans already. You become American because you wish it.
Just change the law on the
I
fly,
guess
right?
that's another way. You know, you can be a man if you're a man and you happen to be a man, you wish you were a woman. You can just wish your way to being a female now. I'm still waiting for Caitlyn Jenner to get pregnant. I think Dennis Rodman to hook her up.
Well, I
wish he
would get pregnant and see what it's like, because I've been there. It's nothing to want, okay? You know, the kid on the other end's a good deal, but going through it is not good. It's pretty tough.
Well, you know, I've never really thought about the reality of pregnancy until I was probably in my middle to late 50s, early 60s. I'm still in my early 60s. I'll be 67 in June. But when I never really thought about it when my then wife was pregnant, things like that. When you talk about morning sickness, and as a guy, you know, you go through what's that about? You know, but when I really thought about it after my kids were grown, and I started doing more reading and studying about abortion and things like that, and I realized that when a woman is pregnant, there's something living inside you. It has to eat, sleep, use the bathroom, and all that stuff.
That's right.
So you have to have a system set up inside you to support a living being.
Yeah.
And I never really thought about that when I was in my teens. Of course not in my teens. Not in my 20s, not in my 30s, not in my 40s. It's probably in my 50s before I really thought about it. But it's giving birth is, I've heard that it's as close to dying as you can come without actually dying. But you've experienced, in my view, a death in the sense of being deprived of, let's say, the office that you ran for,
right,
and being deprived because of non-compliance with the law. I have a problem with that. I had a problem with the whole thing. You had to file a brief in the Supreme Court. I remember you sent me an email saying they accepted it, which is not an easy thing. You have to have a 14 font.
Yeah.
You
double space.
Double 14 font.
That's
double
right.
space.
Double space.
The sources you cite have to be from a site, a computer site that you paid for. Because you can't download anything off of Google and submit it to them. They'll kick it back. That happened to me. I filed a petition there once. And boy, it is a separate.
Oh no, there's a whole
it's
set
a separate specialty all in itself.
That's right. There's a whole set of rules that you have to follow to file with the Texas Supreme Court. And you know what I did, Mike? I looked at very famous lawyers in the state of Texas and their briefs for the Supreme Court, and I studied them for months, learning about how to do this. And I mean, it was a labor of love, I have to tell you. I did have a lawyer in the background helping me, coaching me, but I'll tell you, doing it pro se, which was a big decision. I ran for city council in 2014. For people who might not know, I ran for city council in 2014 and caught Travis County corrupting my election with electronic voting machines. And we filed an election contest. Now, most election contests in the state have to deal with illegal voters. And they trot a couple of voters in and say, how'd you vote? Are you legal? Well, that wasn't this case. This case was about something that Joseph Stalin said many years ago. It doesn't matter who votes. It matters who counts. This case was about the counting laws in the state and how they were completely being ignored. That's what this case was about. And so it was a unique case, that it wasn't just about trotting in a couple voters and saying, how'd you vote? I mean, the delta in my race with Greg Kassar was over 1,200 ballots, okay? And no one in the state had really brought a contest with that large a difference. But here's the deal. If you can push a button on a computer and you can change 100,000, 10,000 votes, 1,000 votes with a push of a button on a tabulation computer, it doesn't matter what the span is now. Okay, so the old paradigm of election contests in the state of Texas was about a couple of votes that you wanted to figure out how they really voted. Well, this was about 1,000, 1,300 ballots that I didn't believe existed. Okay, so it was about counting laws and how we do this electronic counting. And so, you know, we went to the district court. The district court ruled we had no evidence, even though we had, you know, 12,000 documents. Okay, I don't know how you can call it no evidence.
And you had
no evidence.
You had affidavits and
we had
everything, from what I recall.
affidavits. We had statistics. We had an expert witness for computer technology, and we had, you know, records from the audit logs from the main counting computer, because Stalin said it matters who counts, right? Not who votes, but who counts.
Who counts the votes.
That's right, because we believe that even illegals that are voting, they're getting their votes stolen too. All right, so who's, you know, everybody's getting their votes stolen, we believe, when all these laws that are intended to secure, and they're ignored. So it opens the door for fraud. So, you know, we went to the district court. They ruled we had no evidence, and we respectfully disagreed with that judge. And then we went to the appeals court.
Wait, they went further than ruling you had no evidence.
Well, they did. They did.
also ordered that you pay the other side's attorney's fees.
That's right, over $100,000 sanctions for a frivolous lawsuit. I mean, it was shocking what they did to us. It was absolutely unprecedented. I was the first candidate in the state of Texas in the last 130 years that's ever been sanctioned for an election contest. First time ever in the state. Okay, I'm like, oh my, you know, what an honor, I guess. So the district court sanctioned us, even though we had a ton of evidence.
Because I remember hearing you talking about the sanctions at the appeals court.
That's right.
And what did the appeals court do?
The appeals court
they left the sanctions in place,
affirmed what the district court had done, left the sanctions in place, and then they sanctioned us some more. Okay.
And then you went to the Texas Supreme Court.
Right. So here was the deal. Back at the district court, there was a deal on the table from the other side. If we did not appeal the judgment, they would not pursue the sanctions.
They waived the sanctions.
Waive the sanctions. To me, a layperson, that sounded like a bribe. My rights to go appeal a decision, there's a problem with that. If you have to sanction somebody for not allowing them to execute their rights,
and then
or redress
in the court system. Then they want you to sell out your rights for the sanction.
That's right. And I'm like, no. You know, so we had a choice at that point. Do we step up and take personal responsibility, or do we step back and be a victim? We decided we're not going to be a victim. We stepped up. So we said we're going to appeal this because it's wrong.
So you're staring $100,000 in the face.
Oh yeah, you should have seen my husband. He was. I mean, anybody out there watching this, imagine your girl. First of all, we were in debt for the lawsuit, right? First of all, we were in debt. And then now your girl comes home and she says, oh, the judges sanctioned me $100,000 more to pay their attorney's fees. He was flipping out. Bless his heart. But I said, honey, we're going to, and we talked about it and we prayed about it. You know, I'm a woman of faith, and I did a lot of prayer. And the Lord just said, keep moving, because you're in the truth and you're in justice. You're standing on a rock that's really solid. Okay? So we did. So we appealed. Third Court of Appeal basically approved what the district court did and sanctioned us some more. And then the appeals court said, if you go to the Supreme Court and you lose, we're going to sanction you more. So, I mean, bless my husband's heart again. He's like freaking out, right? So, again, I do a lot of prayer, and we discuss all our options, and we decide not to be a victim. And we said we're going to move forward to the Supreme Court.
Lord, at what point did you formed a nonprofit and you started soliciting funds to help defray some costs?
That's a great question. So, interesting in Texas for election contests, it's a lawsuit fund based in the election code. You can set up a lawsuit fund, and the donations are unlimited. So we set that up back when we were in the district court, and
that was before GoFundMe and all that.
it was
stuff,
before
wasn't
I think it was.
Okay.
I'm not sure, so we started raising money for this case, and what I decided to do was go around the state
Okay.
and tell the story, because a lot of people believe in honest elections. And I'll tell you,
Okay.
it's the easiest topic to talk about, because Green Party, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians,
Democrats?
they all want honest elections. They really do. The grassroots, not the crazy people, the grassroots Democrats, the grassroots Green Party, the grassroots Republican, and Libertarians, they want all honest elections.
People down here on the ground.
The grassroots, the heart of the state.
It's the elected people that's the problem.
Well, in some cases, yeah, because are they really
Or their
elected?
bosses.
Were they really elected is the
Uh-huh.
question. With this system and nobody's following law, how can we trust who's sitting on the dais anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Or sitting, who's our state senator, state rep, county commissioner, city council, school board? You can't trust in any of them, were elected.
From what I gathered from just visiting on your case from time to time was, any election can just about be rigged. That's by
Absolutely.
a few
If you're
people,
not following,
by a few people.
Exactly, Mike. Because if you're not following the counting laws, because Stalin said that's what's important. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not following the counting laws in the state, then it's all at risk. It's all at risk.
Stalin, that's that famous socialist that set up USSR, right?
He's a
What Russia
communist,
used to-
yeah. Very dangerous man. He knew how to control the masses, did he not? He did. He was a dangerous man. So we raised the issues about counting, and
Mhm.
the counting laws were being ignored. So that was what was unique about this case. And it was said in the courtroom that they wanted the sanctions to be so high, Mike, that no candidate in the state would ever bring a challenge against these electronic voting machines ever again. That was said in the courtroom. Okay, so there was a reason for
from the bench.
from
from
the
council?
council, the
From
other
council,
side.
Okay.
Okay, from the other side.
That's what they argued, and the judge followed it.
Sure did. So, we presented a ton of evidence that the results could not be known because of all these mistakes that happened. And our legal argument was, and here's the legal argument that really was the crux of everything, and it's based on the state constitution, that the Constitution requires that a ballot be uniquely numbered so that you can track and trace. There's extras, there's too many, there's a little bit, some are missing. So the ballot number is a requirement in the state constitution. And in our case, the only numbered ballots were the absentee paper ballots. And that was an exact tie, 240 to 240. Okay? Those are the numbered legal constitutional ballots. The electronic ballots were not numbered, and they were in a long PDF document. We don't know where the county pulled it. They could have pulled it out of their butt. I don't know where they got it. Okay, the ballots weren't numbered. They wouldn't let us see where they pulled the data, which is required by law. You're supposed to allow the recount watchers to see where the heck they pull this data. Did they pull it out of their butt or what? They wouldn't let us see. So we said those are not legal ballots.
Mm-hmm.
And those were 2-to-1. Those were 33.5% versus 50% for the absentee. That doesn't work. 17% off. Anybody that's run campaigns knows that that's wrong. So we said the legal ballots are the absentee. They're tied. We need a new election. And that was the legal argument. That was the unique legal argument that we took to the Supreme Court. And we said this is a constitutional issue, so it's your jurisdiction.
Okay, now how is it simple as lay terms as possible?
That wasn't simple.
What does the
I thought that was simple.
what does the Supreme Court decide?
What the Supreme Court decided was very interesting. Now, when we decided, I'm gonna before we get to the kind of end of the movie, it was very interesting making the decision to go to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting. I did a lot of prayer, and what came to me, what the Lord told me, was get rid of your lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of them. Because I understood the technical components of the machines better, and I could describe that better, okay? I didn't have enough money to pay for someone to understand it.
No, right,
It would
right,
take
right.
too long, too much money for a lawyer to really understand it. So get rid of your lawyers and do this pro se, do it under your name, and raise this up to be a state issue. So how we approached this was the constitutional issue of numbering, and then we also said all of these things we presented in the court was evidence for a contest, because the appeals court said that was not evidence. I mean, affidavits are not evidence, statistic was not evidence, audit logs were not evidence.
That's what the district court
That's what the
said,
district and appeals court
and the
said.
appeals court co-signed it.
Co-signed it. And that was what was at risk for the state of Texas. It meant a precedence was set that no candidate in the future could ever call this evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You get that? You're a lawyer.
Mhm.
You get
Yeah.
that. So that was a risk. This was not just about, city council race. This was a bigger issue for the state. All right. So we took that approach. We said all of this is evidence, Supreme Court, and we need your guidance on this to remove those sanctions. So we brought up the constitutional issue of numbering, and then the issue of evidence, the rules of evidence for
Right.
election contests. And they took the case.
So the Supreme Court said it was
Case.
evidence.
The Supreme Court said they would not rule on the specifics of the contest because the term had ended. It was a 2-year term.
Mm-hmm.
They did rule on the rules of evidence,
Mhm.
and they said all of this stuff is evidence. And I'm going to read you what the court said, okay? And this is very powerful.
Yeah,
They
what did
removed
they
the
do?
sanctions.
They moved the sanctions.
They removed all the sanctions and all the bad negative press I got in Austin and around the
Mhm.
state. I referred them to the Supreme Court now because they ruled in our favor. They ruled in our favor. Here's what the Supreme Court said. The election activities that Pressley complains about could create a perception of impropriety,
Mm-hmm.
and such impropriety might make the election results unknowable. That was the most important sentence in the case. And what they said was that all of the issues we raised, they had legal merit, they were based on evidence, based on data, and they could have, if we'd ever gotten to trial, we were cut short from going to trial.
Right.
If we had gotten to trial,
'Cause they did SJ'd you.
they summary judgment
Yeah.
us and put us into the appeals loop
Yeah.
is what they did. They said that what Pressley complains about could create a perception of impropriety, and such impropriety might make the results unknowable, and that was our legal argument. And the Supreme Court affirmed that. And what they said was very powerful. They said that the district court abused their discretion, and that's a pretty high bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's as bad as it gets, Mike, right? You're a lawyer.
I'm dealing with an abuse of discretion issue
So when
on a petition
When-
mandamus
yes,
this week.
when the Texas Supreme Court says a court abused their discretion, that's pretty severe. And then they also added that the appeals court erred in affirming that abuse of discretion.
Right.
So we were vindicated, and Mr. Kassar has to pay our Texas Supreme Court costs, which at this point he's not done. We're going to continue to push for that.
So now you had to seek enforcement of what the Supreme Court ordered,
That's right. The court has ordered him to pay us the court costs.
which were around.
It was less than $500 for
Okay.
just they didn't say pay for the fees, but the court
The court costs.
the court costs, and I'm happy with that. This was never about money, this case, and we've gotten donors, like you said, to help us pay for the legal. It was about a $400,000 case. We're still in debt about $35,000, and I would do it again, because there's nothing more important than elections in our state.
Right.
There's nothing in our country. This is our constitutional right. This is what separates us from
I had a question.
a dictatorship.
Did the Attorney General's office submit
Yes, I forgot about that. Yes,
amicus brief in support of you?
they
or
sure
what?
did.
Or
So
did they sit on the sideline?
they sure did. The Attorney General of Texas looked at our evidence, and they basically said, because they certify these voting machines,
I
and
know.
they said basically,
That's why I asked.
yes, they said that when they certified this equipment, they were told and they were shown evidence that they number ballots.
Mm-hmm.
But we presented evidence in our recount that they don't.
That they didn't number.
They don't number them. And so.
But they were told otherwise.
They were told otherwise.
And they just accepted it.
And they just accepted it. So when the rubber meets the road and a candidate does an actual recount like we did, you get to find you get the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Do they? So they don't number. And so the Attorney General wrote to the Supreme Court, they did an amicus curiae brief, and said, please take the case because we need your guidance, Supreme Court, on the numbering issue. And the court chose not to address those issues. They did address about 85% of what we asked, and they removed the sanctions. And they claimed multiple things, and I want to tell you what they basically said. So, and I've got it in here. I want to go through that. So they basically said that we did present evidence, and it had legal merit. And they said that the statistical data that we presented was evidence. And they said the corruption errors were evidence. And they also confirmed that when Travis County did not allow my recount watchers to see where they pulled that data from, the electronic votes.
Is that the tape thing I've heard about?
No. That was the PDF that had all the ballots in it that were not numbered. Where did they get this document, right? Where did they get all these ballots? In days of old, you would open a ballot box and you'd pull the ballots out and you'd watch that happen. In electronic terms, you should be able to look at a computer and watch them pull the data, extract it, download it, print it, right? They wouldn't let us see where they got it. And so the court affirmed that's a criminal offense to block those watchers from not seeing where that activity happened. So they confirmed that it was a criminal activity.
And that's on the county clerk, isn't it?
It's on the county clerk. So that was a fabulous.
Who gets their marching orders from the Secretary of State, right?
Good question. I'm not sure where they just didn't think they needed to follow law, Mike. They just didn't think they needed to follow law. And I'm gonna raise this up because I'll tell you one thing. You know, we have all these great laws in the state. If people don't follow them, what's our recourse? Well, candidates should challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last 4 years, I've worked with many candidates around the state who believe their elections were corrupted and believe there was some issues, but they wouldn't challenge the election. And that's where the problem is. So candidates have to step up because you can have the best laws, you could have, you know, the best courts, you can have, you know, all these great numbered ballots, but if the candidates don't do something when fraud happens, because people are going to lie, cheat, and steal. That's been going on a long time, right? Since day one. Okay? People are going to lie, cheat, and steal. And candidates are the only ones with standing, legal standing. And if they don't do it, we're all victims. Because the voters can't do it. The candidates have to stand up.
So the voters don't even have standing.
The voters have no standing.
They don't have standing to complain about what happened in their own election.
That's right.
Something's wrong there.
Well, there's a bill that, you know, there's a bill that's up in the legislature right now to allow 30 voters to file an election contest, but it didn't get a hearing and has not had a hearing. But so these candidates is where the rubber meets the road. The candidates. So instead of pointing fingers to the illegals, here's what I want to do, and this is a paradigm shift. We want people to point the finger at the candidate. And I'm going to give you some examples. Bernie Sanders. We knew his election was stolen by Hillary, right?
Yep.
Okay. Did he challenge?
Right. No, he eventually just got in line.
He got in line. He didn't challenge. So those Democrats were really upset, right? They were. They felt abandoned. They felt betrayed.
The people that backed Bernie.
You got it.
Like
they gave him money that block-walked that phone bank, and he rolled over.
Right.
Okay, that's one example. Judge Roy Moore in Alabama. Did he challenge?
I don't think so.
No. You got two parties, Republican and Democrat. Both were issues. Both think their elections were stolen, and they didn't do squat.
But it's up to the candidate.
Up to the candidate. Okay, Florida. We know Florida, a lot of issues in Florida last November.
There were.
Did one candidate challenge? None.
I don't think.
Zero.
Gillum didn't challenge.
Nobody.
No, he rolled over.
Nobody
eventually.
challenged.
And the lady in Georgia, Stacey Adams, eventually she rolled over too.
They all roll over. They're told to sit down and shut up and not be a sore loser. But you've got all these voters and block walkers and phone bankers and donors. They're going, what the heck just happened? He didn't, she didn't stand up. So here's the paradigm shift. We have to point to the candidates and say, we demand that you do it. And you need to stand up there, candidate, and say, I'm doing it because those people back there making me do it, right? They're making me, I'm just doing it because they're making me do it. And the money will be there because no one's got the courage to do it. And I'll tell you what, I've worked with about 12 to 15 candidates around Texas. A couple of them hired me and said, Laura, I think my election was stolen. My polls showed me winning. I won the vote. I just didn't win the count. The counting is what matters.
So it's back to who counts it.
Who counts it, right?
Not who votes.
Not who votes it, who counts. So, because all those legal voters, they're getting their votes stolen too, trust me. Okay? So, these candidates hired me.
So everybody's being disenfranchised.
Thank you.
That's so
When the candidate is a coward and won't do it, we're all disenfranchised. So here's the paradigm shift. Point the finger to the candidate. And I'll tell you one thing. I had a national PAC call me, and there was a county that they gave $100,000 to for all these candidates in this county, in this November. And this PAC said, Laura, this county, we know our candidates won because we did polls. They said, what happened? And I said, well, I looked at the data. There were issues here, here, and here, and here.
You have to go and look at their system.
Looked at the issues, and I told this guy, this national PAC executive director, who spent $100,000, right? I said, I believe their elections were stolen, and I've shown them the data, but they refused to challenge. And we had $1 billion donor, Mike, who was going to pay for the contests. And the candidates wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. Do you see the issue here?
Oh, yeah.
They're the only ones with legal standing. So I'm going to tell you. So this $100,000 guy, he said, well, thanks for letting me know, Laura, because you just saved me a bunch of money. Because I'm not putting a penny in that corrupt county again. They can kiss my money goodbye. So when the donor class and the block walkers and the phone bankers decide to stand up and say, okay, candidate, I'm not going to support you unless
if you're not going to
if you're not going to challenge.
If you're not going to fight all the way.
That's right. So your polls showed you winning. You won the vote, but you just didn't win the count.
You didn't win the count.
You better challenge, or we're not supporting you. And I've been going around the state, and this is the paradigm shift. These organizations, no more endorsements, no more money, no more block walking, no phone banking, until the candidate commits. You get it? This is the shift. Point the finger to the candidates, because they should be pointing the finger to the voters who are illegal, or the counting that's illegal. And when we get that happening, we'll have honest elections in this state. I'm telling you, that's where the rubber meets the road, is the candidate.
I think we got somebody in the White House who would challenge it.
You think you would? I think you would too. Well, I'm here to help. And I'll tell you one thing. I formed a company, True Texas Elections, and I'm here to help any candidate.
Is this another nonprofit?
Well, it's not a nonprofit. This is a for-profit LLC. LLC, and we're here to support candidates. We have lawyers that we can refer you to. We have donors that we can refer you to that want candidates to stand up. So if you won the vote, but you didn't win the count, let us help you. We're here to help.
So you're here to help count it, get the count right.
That's right. That's right. And there's a lot of things we can do for that. A lot of things. So that's where I see the future of elections going. People are going to lie, cheat, and steal. That's human nature. That's the human condition. We're put on this earth with people, there's a balance here. You've got honest people, you've got dishonest people. You got a balance. But you have to follow the structure of what we have. We've got good laws. We've got numbered ballots are coming. Many counties are getting numbered ballots now. We've got a great Texas Supreme Court. We just got to have the candidates who have the courage to stand up, and that they'll have it if we are behind them, supporting them, and pushing them at the same time. So what do you think of that? I wanted to roll that out and see what you think about that.
I think it's just asking for a commitment from the candidates to fight.
Do their job.
For
Maybe
them.
they didn't know they were supposed to do this, Mike. maybe they didn't know they had to have courage. I don't know. But now it's a new rules now. We're going to expect you to have courage.
We didn't bargain for it. We just want to take the money and run.
Well, I'll tell you what. Even in my
right.
election, even in that city council race, there were two candidates that we knew there were other issues with. Other two candidates, and they didn't know what to do at the time. But now we've got more of a infrastructure in place to help. We've got donors. We have lawyers. See, most lawyers in the state, they're worried about, and I'll tell you, Judicial Watch loves to worry about illegal voters. Okay.
Yep.
They don't worry about counting. That's not their
right.
That's not their sandbox. At least not right now.
The focus might be in the wrong place.
Well, it's a different way to look at it. Okay, both are important. But we're saying that counting piece is what's been left on the table unaddressed. And we're going to address that now. So now we've got lawyers who will deal with that. We've got donors who are willing to help candidates. And we just got to have candidates that are strong and want to do the right thing. So it's a different way of looking at it.
It's a different angle.
It's a different angle.
Than what has been traditionally tried. Now, the illegal argument I guess has a little more sex appeal, maybe more common sense appeal, but the counting aspect can be pretty technical.
That's right.
And they'll vary from
It is
state
technical.
to state. Now, Texas is pretty clear cut.
We've got the best laws in the country. We've got watcher laws. We've got numbering law. I mean, Florida, they don't even number their ballots. So you can have a busload of ballots come in, a busload go out, and no accounting about it. In Texas, we have got a constitution that says you will number that ballot. Okay? So we've got the best laws in the country. We've just gotta wake up and adhere to them and have candidates hold counties who count to the letter of the law. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help that.
But I thought at one point when I was listening to your argument in your case, it sounded like the Secretary of State's Secretary of State may present a challenge in terms of getting compliance.
Well, that's
at
right.
the county level.
That's exactly right. So that's where, it's very interesting in our ruling by the Supreme Court. They basically say just because a Secretary of State says something doesn't mean it's right. They basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what they said. So, and everybody thinks the Secretary of State walks on water. Well, you've got bureaucrats in the Secretary of State's office.
Right.
That are what I consider to be rogue. They've been
doing things a certain way.
They've been doing things a certain way for a while. No one's held them accountable. No one said, "Hey, stop this. This is not to the letter."
No one's asked.
No one's asked. That's right. No one's said no, and we've said no. We're the first ones to say no, Secretary of State. Just because you've got the Secretary of State emblem on your letterhead and you sign it, I'm sorry, you're not God. You're not God, right? And speaking of God, I do want to say one thing. When we decided, Mike, to do this pro se, it was a Gideon moment. Okay, there's a story of Gideon in the Bible, in the book of Judges. And the Lord told Gideon, for those of you that remember the story, you can go read it in the book of Judges. The Lord told Gideon, I'm going to get rid of most of those soldiers for you for that battle, because if you have all those soldiers, you're going to take credit for the victory. And the Lord said, you need to give the Lord victory. So I'm going to take these soldiers away from you and only give you a certain number. It was a very small number. So I believe getting rid of these lawyers was a Gideon moment, personally. And the Supreme Court taking this case, there was about a 5% chance of that happening. And ruling positively was even less than that. They took the case. They ruled in our favor for about 85% of what we asked for.
They said it was a unanimous decision?
Unanimous decision. That was a miracle. It's the Lord's victory. This is not my victory. This is a victory for the people of Texas. And just imagine, I'm one candidate in the last 4 years that actually did this. If more would do it, we would get more confidence in our elections because we would follow law, because people are going to be held accountable to it. I believe the court's the way to go. I believe that. This is the way, this is what's come to me in a lot of prayer, Mike, is that we've got this beautiful court system. We've got a great Texas Supreme Court, unanimous decision here. Let's use them. Let's use them.
It's usually a long, hard struggle, long and hard.
We know that. That's okay.
You lose a lot of weight and a lot of sleep.
That's
usually.
right.
I mean, it's just.
That's right. And it's an absolute
that
miracle.
That seems to be the nature of the beast.
I know. And that's why we're here for candidates. We're here to help them. We're here to guide them. We've got lawyers that we refer them to. We've got donors who'll help. We just got to have an honest system. And it's designed for that. But, basically the Lord just wants us to show up, right? You show up and He'll take care of it. Well, you got to show up, right? Even though it's scary, and we were scared. My husband, bless his heart, man. Oh gosh, what an angel. My husband is an angel. His girl comes home and I got 100,000 sanctions. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that? Your wife, she comes home and bless his heart. And I said, honey, the money will be there. I promise. I knew it. I had faith it was going to be there, and it was.
Oh yeah.
So we went around the state. I've given about 280 presentations in the last 3 years on our case, and I'm not joking.
With that video that I saw at the library that day.
Oh yeah, well I've been all over. I've been to East Texas, West Texas, North Texas, down by the coast, and everywhere in between. And I've told this story to Democrat clubs, Republican clubs, retiree clubs, Libertarian Party, Green Party. And honestly, everybody just wants honest elections and let the chips fall. And then we can vote the bums out. But right now we can't vote the bums out because they're stuck in there. Because none of this is, you can push a button and 100,000 votes are changed.
You can't vote the bums out because there's maybe somebody on the back in the back.
That's right, because the counting is
pushing. It's counting.
The counting's messed up. So when you can push a button in Harris County and Houston, and 1 million votes can be changed, and we're worried about these onesie-twosie illegal voters. Excuse me, we're in a distraction mode. Okay, both are important. The counting has been ignored for a long time, and we're not ignoring that anymore.
And they were trying to keep it that way if you would sell out for your sanctions.
That's right. That's right.
If you sold out for your sanctions.
That's right.
That case never would have happened.
You got it. And we said no. And it was a lot of prayer, Mike.
So you rolled the dice. You rolled the dice.
No, I didn't roll the dice. I trusted truth and justice, and I trusted God's will is what I did. Whatever was going to happen was going to be what was supposed to happen. We just didn't say no. Didn't say no. We're not gonna sell out. We're not going to play ball with lies and injustice. We're not going to play ball with that.
Unfortunately, we're in seem to be an age where truth doesn't really matter.
No, that's not. I see truth matters a lot.
It's perspective and opinion. It's popular.
I know it.
I believe that the truth still matters.
I believe it too.
And what happened to me, in my view, what happened in your case was eventually the truth won out.
Yes.
You had to go through a lot of things to get to that result, but eventually the truth won out.
It sure did. Truth is very powerful.
But it shouldn't take all that.
Well, I disagree. Because you know what? I believe, and I'm a spiritual woman, I believe we get what we fight for. There's nothing that says you come to this earth and everything's easy. We get reprieves from a lot of hard work. We get a few reprieves every now and then. But we're here. I want you to think about this, because this is very important spiritually. We're in this country and we've been given so much. When much has been given, much is expected.
Mhm.
This is, I was given the ability to understand this equipment. I was given the ability to have the history, the work history of 4 computer patents.
Because your background is in
My
computers,
background is
ain't it?
computer technology. I mean, they picked the wrong girl to mess with on computers. I'll tell you, they just did. They picked the wrong girl because I know how they work. I knew about these audit logs. I know I can read technical specs. So I was given all of that, and what was expected of me spiritually was a lot.
Mhm.
And I try to follow what I'm told
Mhm.
in my prayer. And this is a miracle. I just want people to understand this, that this is a miracle. 5% of cases get taken. Less than that get positive rulings. And they took the case. And I'll tell you what, Austin Press will tell you Laura Pressley lost this case. Well, here in the judgment it says he owes me money for court costs. That's not, the loser doesn't get court costs, right? Only the winner gets court costs, right? What they said was the contest part of it was moot because the term had ended, 2-year term. So they didn't decide either way on that. They didn't rule against me or for me. They said the term is up, we're going to let that sit. But the sanctions were an abuse of discretion. They should have let us go to trial. They should have let us go into trial. But they short-circuited for 4 years into this BS.
Which means if a candidate can be strong now, going forward, they'll be able to go to trial.
You got it.
Because of this ruling.
You got it. That's right, Mike. And that's what was at risk.
You have something to fight. You have something to fight with.
And you say, hey, look, this is evidence. Send me to trial. You can't call it no evidence. Yeah. It's good. It's great. Because you know how law works. It's one little step at a time. One case sets the stage for the next one. And the next one does it better than we did.
Because you draw on the step.
It's a step.
It's a step.
You know, that's how law works.
Yeah, can be a painstaking process.
It can.
I can say that.
It can.
Law school itself is a painstaking process.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
3 years of pain.
I'm sure it was.
Pain and fright.
Well,
fright the first year, pain the second year.
Yeah, that's
Third
right.
year, you get kind of bored a little bit. But
I'm just glad we did it. It'll be on the books forever. It's a case that'll be on the books forever. And it's set precedence in the state of Texas.
But I was surprised that you said you got some support from liberal or Democratic quarters.
Sure did. I present to anybody that wants me to. I tell this story to any group, no matter what your political persuasion is, because everybody deserves honest elections. And I'll tell you one thing. Here's an example. Think of the Democrat primary. You'll have a moderate Democrat against this Marxist, crazy, communist person, right? Why is the communist person winning? It makes no sense, right? So I believe, in my experience and what I've seen, in the Democrat primaries are where the dirty work is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So what boils to the top is the crazy Marxist communist. And the moderate Democrat, even a conservative Democrat, is losing out.
They're being drowned out.
The counting, they're not winning the count. Mm-hmm. They might win the vote, they're just not winning the count. So you have this Marxist crazy person bubbling up, and they go up against the Republican. Okay? And now the Marxist crazy person's winning. The counting was off here, and the counting is off here. So I believe the more that the vote is accurate, the better the races are going to be.
The more even the contest will be.
More, and the people, it reflects the people's intentions, the people's morals and values. And right now, it's not representing that. And there's another question. Think about bonds. That's a big issue. If the counting's not right there, our property taxes, our debt.
Your money, you're being robbed.
You're being robbed. You could be being robbed. So all of this, we have to have honest elections across for candidates, for bonds, for propositions, for whatever.
Well, it's just right.
Yeah,
It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do. It's the truth. The people should speak, not a few who have control over the counting
Right.
computer.
Stalin shouldn't rule.
That's right.
The people should rule.
People should rule. That's right. It should matter who votes, right? But the candidates are the ones with legal standing. They have to step up, and we're here to help them.
So if the candidates don't stand up, there's no
Fraud waltzes across Texas.
And so this Senate bill that's coming out, is it
yes.
is it going to address any of this?
It is.
In what way?
The Senate Bill 9 is very good. It's got some issues. I'm not perfectly happy with it, but it's making it moves the ball down the field.
Is it a step in the right direction?
It's a good steps in the right direction. It ensures a paper trail for every county in the state. So this electronic voting, where a few people can control the counting, no more. We need a paper ballot backup for a recount. Now you can still steal the paper, but it's harder. Takes a lot more work. Okay. There's it increases some penalties to felonies, because a lot of the penalties right now for violating the code are misdemeanors, and DAs don't even want to mess with it because it's misdemeanors. It's not a felony. So they've moved many of these up to state jail felonies, so it should really deter some behavior.
That's 2 years and 10,000.
That's right. And it's a felony versus a misdemeanor. So I think it takes away your right to vote, right? For a period of time.
For a minute, anyway.
For a minute.
For a minute.
There's other components to the bill. I've got my notes here. Let's see.
Does it have support of the governor or lieutenant governor?
It does.
It does?
It does. And you know what's interesting about the Senate, I don't know if you know this, but you have to have so many votes to bring it to the floor.
Right.
So Dan Patrick, my understanding is his history, he allows only bills to come to the floor that will pass.
Okay.
So they heard it today. I was listening on the way right before I came.
While
It passed
riding
out the
stuck in
Senate. Before I left the house. So it passed first reading. It's got to do multiple readings, and it's going to go to the House and then come back. So it's good. Senate Bill 9.
But if the lieutenant governor's behind it, it has a pretty good chance of becoming law.
It does. It moves the ball down the field. Is it perfect? No, but it moves the ball down the field for a paper backup. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. I'll tell you one thing. Mike, this has been what a journey this has been. It's been a journey. An arduous one. But I'm grateful for it. The first year I was kind of angry about what happened to me. I don't have any more anger. I feel grateful to have had the opportunity to do this and to make the progress that needed to be made. And we're on the other side now.
You've had an opportunity to change and impact lives. This is what's the most important part about it.
Well, it's a team effort, because there's so many people in the state that once they knew what was going on, it was easy for them to get behind what the right thing to do is. The legal, what the law says.
But if it weren't for your understanding of the computers and how they work and how they can be manipulated, this never would have.
I think so.
Just
I
like
think you're right.
They picked the wrong girl.
They picked the wrong girl. Yeah, they did. So, but sometimes that's how the Lord works, right? That's right.
Got the
I'm
right
grateful.
one.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it. He put it in my lap. He knew I wouldn't walk away.
The right, wrong one.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And we're here to help other people. This happened to me, and I'm here to help others.
What was that? The election was what?
14
years ago. 14.
It's 5 years ago.
Ooh.
Yep.
Okay, Laura, I want to thank you for being on my show again.
Bless you. Thank you for having me and telling the story. Thank you.
We can't tell it too many times or enough.